I made an installation called You're Tearing Me Apart, and I'm going to show it to you. Hey guys, today I'd like to tell you about an installation I did at the LA County Store a few years ago. LA County Store is a shop in Silver Lake in Los Angeles dedicated solely to things made in LA, including housewares, accessories, art prints, and more. They had this empty wall in the store that had this long rectangular nook in it, and inside that long rectangular nook they would rotate work by local artists. And they were looking for proposals for their new season of work. And since I was living in LA at that time, I submitted a proposal for this installation, and that's how I came to show it there for a month-long run. The installation featured 11 interpretations of actor James Dean's head in papier-mâché, floating over a miniature LA mountainscape featuring the Hollywood sign, as well as a miniature Griffith Observatory as the centerpiece. The artwork was a meditation on and a celebration of what some might consider the golden age of Los Angeles cinema, and it was also a reflection on movie stars and cultural icons. I titled it You're Tearing Me Apart, which is a famous line exclaimed in agony by James Dean's character Jim Stark in the film Rebel Without a Cause.
You're tearing me apart!
As a teenager in Sweden, I became infatuated with James Dean. I read all the books about him, I watched all the documentaries I could get my hands on, and of course I watched all of his films. He only starred in 3 films before he died in a car accident at 24, and they were East of Eden and Rebel Without a Cause from 1955 and Giant from 1956. Rebel Without a Cause spoke to me instantly. It was all about teenage angst, and it had all these emotional peaks and valleys, and it took its young characters very seriously. To a young Swedish girl, it was also this intoxicating glimpse into American high school culture in the 1950s. In Rebel Without a Cause, there are several key scenes that take place in and around the Griffith Observatory, including a famous knife fight scene. And today there is a bust of James Dean on the Griffith Observatory lawn to commemorate the actor and the film and the role that the observatory played in the movie. In my installation, James Dean's heads floated above the observatory, becoming literal stars in the night sky, while the observatory watched from below as a symbol for the eyes of the entire city. I also liked that there were several James Dean heads, becoming a literal nod to the line, "You're tearing me apart." I made all the heads with papier-mâché using balloons as molds. I would just blow the balloons up to whatever size I needed, and once that first layer was dry, I could go ahead and shape the features like the hair, eyebrows, nose, ears, and the chin with aluminum foil that I would then cover with another layer of papier-mâché and let dry and then paint. To suspend the heads, I used clear fishing wire hanging from some wood trim, and I arranged the heads by order of size, with the largest head in the middle and then subsequently smaller heads flanking the large head on either side. The largest head also got a little cigarette in its mouth. To create the observatory, I had to get a bit more inventive with what I could use to build up a mold, and I remember using some cans and some balloons and some other items to build out the shapes that I needed. And once I had that covered and dried in papier-mâché, I used a straw covered with papier-mâché for the telescope. For the flat part of the landscape, I used aluminum trays cut into parts and then taped together before covering them with papier-mâché. And for the mountainous parts, I built those up using crumpled up newspaper covered with plastic bags that I then covered with papier-mâché. And once that was all dry, I painted it using this sponge method where I had a lot of different hues of brown, and I would dip the sponge in them, different colors at a time, dabbing it on, creating this kind of textured mountain rocky look. It was lucky that I had a studio in East Hollywood during the time that I worked on this project, because it took up a lot of space. During the installation, I poked some holes in the mountains and added a few different kinds of these plastic miniature trees. I also added my tiny homemade papier-mâché letters to spell out the Hollywood sign. I'd also created some homemade foliage out of torn paper that I painted green and then bundled together to create these little bushel or grass shapes. And then I added some toothpicks with glue on the bottom that allowed for them to stand up. All in all, it was a big project, but I had a lot of fun making it, and I like to think James Dean would have dug it. And that's something I made. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit a thumbs up and leave a comment below. And why not hit subscribe? I'll see you next week. Bye.